Hello, everybody. My name is Delmi Haney, and this is my individualized teaching and learning presentation. So, the first thing that I will discuss is the big picture. Then I will go over motivation and why is it important to have inclusion. Then I will introduce you guys to Drina, my focus child. And then after, we're going to discuss various supports and modifications I made to help Drina, followed by what I learned from this experience and how I intend to continue my learning. Okay, starting with our introduction. When a family experiences a high degree of belongingness with their child during the early years, it positively shapes their expectations for the future. Providing an inclusive place where families feel comfortable gives family that hope that their child will be able to achieve their goals, and ultimately that's what we want as well. So making sure our classroom is inclusive will help not only the child but the families and us. Inclusion and ECE. Children and their families should have the right to participate in a broad range of activities and contexts in early childhood inclusion, regardless of ability. The concept embodies values, policies, and practices that promote the inclusion of infants and young children and their families. Motivation. Inclusive education provides children with a fair opportunity to attend school, acquire knowledge, and skills that will enable them to succeed. In an inclusive educational environment, all children are in the same classrooms, in the same schools, and children with disabilities will benefit from real learning opportunities. Diversity enhances learning in inclusive classrooms, and students from all backgrounds can learn together and grow together. My setting. So I currently volunteer at a home daycare center here in Palmdale, California. There are about 22 children who attend this daycare, but not all at once. This daycare is a 24-hour daycare, so that's why we have children from like all different times of the day. The ages range from age 0 to 9, and we also have children who are bilingual as well. So I really like this daycare because all children are welcome, no matter if they have a disability or not. And this is the daycare that my focus child Drina goes to every weekday. Now we're going to talk about my focus child Drina and some of her strengths and needs. So Drina right now is 5 years old. So her strengths, she's a very fun, loving child, loves to play with other children. She's very affectionate and loves giving hugs, holding hands. For the most part, she follows directions really well. She has her little moments. But if we ask her to do an activity, she definitely will do it. So that's a good thing about her. Her needs. Drina needs support with her creativity during art time and also has a hard time being able to find the games she wants on computer. Since Drina is a little short, she also has a hard time getting on the trampoline outside during outside time. So now we'll discuss environmental supports like physical, social, and temporal that I use to help Drina. So starting with physical, providing the necessary materials Drina needs in order to complete her drawings during arts and crafts time. So since Drina does struggle with being a little creative and during art, I just like to make sure all the materials are there at her access so she doesn't have to get up and ask us, which will disengage her from wanting to, finish her art projects. So social. So pairing Drina with a peer who knows how to use the computer can help motivate Drina to learn how to do it on her own. One thing Drina does do, she gets a little frustrated when she can't find her games as fast as she wants. So instead of having her come ask us, when I know Drina wants to play on the computer, I'll just pair her with another student right away. This way, no frustration is needed from her and she can have fun and everything's going to be okay. Then we have temporal. So putting a timer on outside to let Drina know it's time to move on to the next activity will help prevent unwanted behaviors from her. All children struggle a little bit with transitions. So just having a little timer outside to let Drina and all the other children know it's time to move on to the next activity will help the transition be smoother. Now we are going to go over different curriculum modifications I made for Drina. So starting with adult support. I noticed while Drina was drawing, she kept constantly asking for new pieces of paper. So I went over to see all her drawings she had done, and all the papers had like maybe 2 or 3 lines on them, and she would want to start over. So instead of giving her a new piece of paper, I decided it would be a good idea to help Drina expand her mind and make something new from her old drawings. Although she really didn't want to start over, I just encouraged her, and I asked, like, what do you want to draw? And she said a house. So we just helped her and showed her like how the lines she already made was still possible for her to create a house. This modification was useful because after I showed her for the first time, she grabbed one of her old drawings and turned it into a rainbow, and she did that all on her own without us having to tell her what to do. So the next support was peer support. Like I said before, Drina has a hard time finding games on the computer, so we end up pairing her with a peer, which helped her dramatically to stay positive and happy during her technology time. And then for invisible support, during outside play, Drina likes to get on the trampoline. However, it's too high for her, so she needs help, and we always have to pick her up and put her in the trampoline. So I think I was like, to make it easier for her, I moved, as you can see in the picture, a slide that we have that also has stairs. I moved it close to the trampoline, so this way Drina can get on her own and feel more independent, and she doesn't have to wait for us to pick her up and put her on the trampoline. So now we're going to discuss the 3 big goals that I made for Drina. So goal number 1 was for Drina to be able to recognize 5 different shapes. So Drina currently knows like circle and square, but I want her to be able to know the other ones that people don't usually teach their children, like rhombus and cross and hexagon. So that's goal number 1. Goal number 2 is to get Drina to put her shoes on the correct feet. She constantly puts her shoes on the wrong feet, so we're just get her to practice that. And goal number 3 is to get Drina to write her first name, and she just has a little trouble with writing. So the goal I decided to break down was having Drina be able to recognize 5 different shapes. So her current level of functioning is she can recognize 2 different shapes. The first step will be able to recognize 3. Second step, be able to recognize 4. Third, be able to recognize 5. And hopefully she will reach her goal to be able to recognize 5 different shapes. Embedded teaching. So my plan is to try to incorporate teaching Drina 2 different shapes a day. I want to teach her in a way where she doesn't realize that she's learning. So an example of this would be outside time. I'll get chalk and I'll draw a couple shapes on the floor, and we'll either play hopscotch on them or just talk about what's on the floor, and then maybe get her to draw the shapes as well. And finally, we have lessons learned and future learning. So something that was difficult for me was being able to follow my own lesson plan. I just wish I would have gone over my lesson plan a little bit more before I taught it, so I didn't miss a step. And then one thing I learned is how important it is to observe each child and find out what type of support they need and when they need it, because not all child will need, a peer support at times, or not, every child is different. It's good to observe and figure out what the child really needs. And for my future, I plan on continuing this ECE program, and I want to volunteer at different schools and daycare, and this will give me the necessary hands-on experiences I need in order to grow and learn. And out of all this, I was glad to be able to help Drina in any way I can, and I will continue to help her until she reaches her goals.